Good evening. I am Father Gilbert from Nidiga Don Bosco, Kolkata, from the Salesian province of Calcutta. I am here to present a document, Gaudete et Exsultate, Rejoice and be glad. Basically, this document of Pope Francis is about holiness. So the title, Holiness, Francis' Formula for Faithful Everyone. Let me introduce you the topics which I'm going to present to you now. Basically, I will be giving a small introduction, a short introduction to the document before I begin the content of the document. Then I will touch upon 4 holy habits or 4 habits for anyone who wants to become holy, and 1 unholy habit which Francis mentions inside, or 2 types of unholy habits. Then I will have concluding thoughts. Then finally I'll give you a little time for introspection, personal introspection, to look into our own selves based on this teaching on holiness by Pope Francis. That is what I am intending to do. Let us begin with the document. What is this document? In fact, Pope Francis wrote this document, Gaudete et Exsultate in Latin, in English, Rejoice and be glad, taken from the letters of one of the letters of St. Paul, Rejoice and be glad. This is called apostolic exhortation. Normally, apostolic exhortations come after a synod that discusses on the same topic. This particular document did not reach us after a synod that discussed on this topic. This was released 2 years back on 19th March on the solemnity of St. Joseph. Now we are 2 years or past this document. This is a third document, third apostolic exhortation document from Pope Francis. The first one being Evangelii Gaudium, Joy of the Gospel. Second one, Amoris Laetitia, the Joy of Love. This is the third one. After this, Pope Francis has written one more, Querida Amazon, Beloved Amazon, about environment, which I will be presenting next month. Querida Amazon, that is the fourth apostolic exhortation that came this year. Now, this is basically the history behind this document, which was released 2 years back. Basically, this is about the holiness of each one of us in the church. To talk about this basic element of this document, I would put this way, the basic theme of this document. According to this teaching, Pope Francis says, saints are living with us. Saints are not who are dead and gone. Normally, our saints are, after their death, they are officially approved as saints. That means canonized. Then we call them saints. But Pope Francis says in this teaching, saints are with us. Saints are next door, means they are living with us. They are our neighbors. They are part of our family. And he says, this universal call to holiness is already expressed in the Second Vatican Council, Lumen Gentium, number 40, where he says, all are called to holiness. Earlier, people of the church, means we used to think, holiness was meant for a specified few people in the church, religious, superiors, or bishops, or popes, martyrs, not any ordinary people. But Second Vatican Council brought to us this teaching. Everyone is called to holiness. Anyone is eligible to be holy, not particular few people. So that is the basis of this document. And based on that, Pope Francis says, there are saints living with us, living saints. They are next door. And if I can put the entire document in one sentence, that I would put it as a tagline. This is a sentence I would say. Saints are ordinary people doing ordinary things well. So they are ordinary people. They are not extraordinary people. They are normal like us, saints, and doing ordinary chores of life well. And they are saints next door. That's a lovely phrase used in this teaching. Saints next door. What does it mean? Don't go to Europe or America to find out saints. They are with us. They are close to us. They are part of our lives. They are alive. And Pope Francis will give examples on that actually. Now let us go to the different characteristics or traits of these holy people. The first characteristics is, one of the first characteristics Pope Francis says, holy person is humane. Not human holiness, humane holiness. What does it mean? All the normal humane characteristics will be there in any saint. They don't have any extraordinary gifts, holy people. They are very humane, means down to earth, like us, down to earth. It is not restricted to saints who are approved in the church alone, that to be called as a holy person, to live as a holy person, it is not restricted to saints alone. He says there are saints next door, and he uses another phrase, middle class of holiness. What is this middle class of holiness? Because we think holiness, we need to have a very high level of spirituality, high level of holy life. We have to spend a lot of time in prayer, fasting, abstinence, spend 24/7 in the church. Don't eat, don't do anything. No, that is not the type of holiness here. They are middle class of holiness. There is no caste system in holiness, high caste level of holiness. It is only middle class. Anyone normal like us, they are all holy people. And he gives a beautiful example of who are these holy people. Probably our own parents, who do normal works of the day well, doing the daily chores well. Our aged parents, grandparents, elderly people, elderly priests, elderly religious sisters, they are all actually examples of holiness for us, who lived life. And they teach us life and holiness. So Pope Francis says, don't go far for holy people. They are with us. They are saints next door. And to make us understand, he says, saints are not perfect. They have done a lot of mistakes. They are imperfect people. So don't expect saints are without any errors, any mistakes, no flaw in them. No, it is not like that. Saints have their past. They are not perfect people. So this is what Pope Francis is also teaching us. So that is consoling, encouraging for us, because we are not without mistakes. We are all with mistakes, plenty of mistakes, but we can still be holy, and we can still strive towards that perfection of holiness. Then he says another beautiful statement, humane holiness. How to be humane? Do the works of charity, works of mercy. Corporal works of mercy 7, spiritual works of mercy 7. They are simple things. Visiting the sick and feeding the hungry and all those things. They are actually simple things. Basically, they are acts of charity. And these acts of charity are higher than acts of worship. Remember this. Why? St. Paul himself says, among all the virtues, the highest is charity, love. And where do you find this charity, love? Where do you find tangibly, concretely, this expression of love? Not in the air, not in your teaching. It's in the action, works of mercy, spiritual and corporal. And these are the words of Aquinas. They are higher to anything. And all of us can be holy in the way Saint Teresa of Child Jesus taught us. What is that holiness? Pope Francis is telling us. Doing small justice. In the language of Saint Teresa of Child Jesus, little way of Saint Teresa. What is little way? Simple things in life, simple deeds in life, simple way of being good and doing good. Even a little smile, a gesture of kindness, a tender love, touch. That's more than enough to be holy. This is called a little way. We cannot do everything in this world. We cannot be messiahs of the whole world. We are not meant for that. We are here to do little things, ordinary things well. Once Mother Teresa was asked by a journalist when she was feeding the poor, the famous question all the philosophers and thinkers and the world and society, sometimes we also will ask. The other day in our WhatsApp group, this discussion was there. It is better to teach the poor to fish than giving the fish. So the journalist asked Mother Teresa, isn't it better to teach these poor people how to fish than giving them fish? And you know what Mother Teresa replied to that journalist? She said, if you know how to do that, you do it. I have only fish and I give. Then she said one more thing. If I can make one person less hungry now in the billions of people, at least one person is less hungry at this moment. If everybody does just making one person less hungry, billions of people will be less hungry now. That's all we are asked to do. We are only a drop in the ocean. We are not the ocean. Remember this. Little things that we can do enough. Great things, big achievements, we are not asked to do. Simple things. That is holiness. That is holiness we are all asked to do. Now let us go to the second characteristics of holiness. And what is the second characteristic? Cheerful holiness. A saint is a happy person, cheerful person. And we have cheerful saints, humorous saints in the history of the church. Pope Francis narrates some of these people who are very cheerful in their life. Saint Vincent de Paul, happy. Saint Philip Neri, very happy person. Don Bosco, in fact, another happy saint. Saint Thomas More, very happy saint, serene saint. Don Bosco was the one who actually promoted what Saint Philip Neri said once in his life. Play, jump, shout, sing, dance, but do not commit sin. That is real, cheerful people. Play, jump, sing, shout, dance, provided you do not commit sin. So these are all the people who promoted the positive side of holiness, positive sides of life. In fact, Bible also promoted this. Saint Paul has said, God loves a cheerful giver. Cheerfully you give. When we give it willingly and cheerfully. Don't give with a murmuring mind and murmuring heart and grumbling attitude. Cheerful giving. And Saint Paul himself mentions in Acts chapter 20, he says, our Lord said this, there is no greater happiness, there is more happiness in giving than receiving. He says, our Lord said this, there is more happiness in giving than receiving. Gospels do not record this statement from Jesus. We do not know whether Jesus said, but we know whether Jesus did. Jesus gave very cheerfully, and the happiest giving was his own life. So a happy person is a saintly person. In fact, happiness, blessedness, they are all synonyms, other words for holy. This is what Pope Francis says. Another word for holiness is happiness. Another word for holiness is blessedness. So they are all happy people. To be happy, that is real art of being holy. Continuing on this holiness, of cheerful holiness, we have a beautiful young saint, Saint Dominic Savio, who said, sanctity consists in being cheerful. Sanctity, holiness is in being cheerful. In fact, he was not a cheerful boy. because he thought to be a saint means to look serious, to have a grumpy face, and do not smile, and do not be humorous in your attitude towards others. Look serious every way so that you will become a holy person. Sometimes people still think that the old style of being holy. So this boy, when other boys to go and play, he will go and pray, spend a lot of time in the church. He will do a lot of fasting, lot of abstinence, penance, and etc. One day Don Bosco saw this boy full time spending time in the church. So Don Bosco called this boy and said, "Why are you doing all this?" And he said, "I want to be a saint." To being a saint is not this way. Don Bosco, his mentor, instructed this boy and told him, if you want to be holy, go and play with the other boys. Then this boy said, Dominic Savio said, no, other boys are all bad. They talk bad words. They fight. They don't play a fair game. But Don Bosco said, if you play with them, if you enjoy their company, even though they are bad boys, you will find they will be transformed. And be happy even with the bad company. And try to be good among the bad. And this boy started to play with the boys, and he really formed a sodality called cheerful sodality. And he is this boy who said sanctity consists in being cheerful. And we have humor in many ways understood. And Pope Francis says, ill humor is no sign of holiness. What is ill humor? Ill humor can be hurting. Laughing at others, hurting. So laughter is the best medicine, good medicine, but laughing at others may not be right. Laughing with others, very good. Sometimes empty laughters, that does not mean you are happy within. We can laugh loud, that does not mean you are happy. So ill humor to be rejected in this habit that we promote, cheerful holiness. Finally, a sad saint is a sorry saint. Be happy wherever you are. Be happy in everything that you do. Do it willingly, cheerfully, and mindfully. The third habit, beatitudinal holiness. The word beatitude is actually the teaching of Jesus, which we call Sermon on the Mount. You will find the full version of this teaching of Jesus, Beatitudes, in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, 6, and 7. In 3 chapters, they are stretched out, these teachings of Jesus, beautiful teachings of Jesus. They are called Sermon on the Mount. And Sermon on the Mount begins with Beatitudes, 8 values, 8 formulas for happiness. It begins with, blessed are you poor, blessed are you merciful. Another translation says, happy are you poor, happy are you merciful. Blessedness, happiness are all synonyms for holiness. And in fact, this is actually, according to Pope Francis and for all of us, a roadmap to holiness. It is a sign towards holiness. If you really follow the Beatitudes, we are led to the destination called holiness. And in fact, if you really do this, we are doing what Jesus taught, what Jesus did. We become Jesus. It is actually an image of Jesus. If you want to know what's the image of Jesus in real form, look at these teachings of Jesus and try to practice this. You will find entire main part of this document about these Beatitudes. He gives beautiful explanations about each of these Beatitudes, 8 Beatitudes, and he explains in a simple language. At the end, he gives practical tips how to practice each of these Beatitudes. I would suggest please read this part, Beatitude. They are very good for meditation, even reflection and prayer. How do I need to practice each of these Beatitudes? This is the most important part of this teaching. Now let us go to some dangerous areas of holiness. What are these dangerous holiness, dangerous areas? There are two types of dangerous areas, two false forms of holiness, which he calls Gnosticism, the other one Pelagianism. There are two trends that had happened in the history of the church: Gnosticism and Pelagianism. Let me go to Gnosticism. What is Gnosticism? Gnosticism is an attitude: I know everything. I know everything. What is needed at the end is intellectual capacity, intellectual knowledge. With that, I can manage everything. That type of attitude. No need to be charitable, no need to do anything good. Knowledge alone will suffice in your life. This is a danger, a hindrance, a block towards our real holiness. Know it all attitude. Knowledge alone is not sufficient. Knowledge is good. Knowledge is good. We need to know our faith. Even Pope Benedict XVI would say, know what you believe. That alone is not sufficient. Even devils can get first prize in catechism class. Remember that. So, knowing alone will not make you holy. The next danger is Pelagianism. What is Pelagianism? Pelagianism is that we can take care of ourselves. That I don't need any help, any support from anybody. That means I have my own capacity, my own powers, and a kind of superiority over the others. Something like almighty attitude. Almighty. See, I am very powerful. I am capable. I am efficient. I don't need anybody's help, not even God's help. So this is called Pelagianism attitude. They act like Maharajas and Maharanis. So both these are actually a kind of attitude of egoism, self-centeredness, almighty attitude, Maharani attitude or Maharaja attitude. These are dangers to holiness. We need to avoid that. Now let us go to another habit of holiness, that is community holiness. Let me ask you a question. For us Christians, is holiness individual holiness or community holiness? Sometimes we think that I have come into this world to make myself holy. If you have come into this world to make yourself holy, you're quite wrong in Christian sense. Is there an individual holiness? For us, Pope Francis says, holiness is a journey together in community. Holiness is a journey together in community. Saints for sure, but saints together. Very important. Okay, we all want to be saints, that's sure, but saints together. None of us will go to heaven alone. We will have company. We need to have company. We are here to save others. By saving others, we'll save ourselves. So by making others holy, we will become holy. So this is community holiness. This is greater than individual holiness. Sometimes I used to say we need to sacrifice our moments of individual holiness for the sake of community holiness. This is very important. It's very important. So we are all living together, moving together, journeying together, not alone in this world. So we need to be sensitive and collaborate and network with each other. That's the first thing. Then he says very beautiful quotation. That is why no one is saved alone as an isolated individual. None of us will be saved alone. We'll be saved together with others. My mission, my duty is to save others, to help others. And that is community holiness. And we have beautiful examples of communities that stood together, supported together, and that entire community became holy community. There are lots of examples of martyrs. Together, they were martyred. They stood together. And there are many examples mentioned in this document. I would like to bring to your attention one particular community recently martyred last century, towards the end of last century, 1990s, 1995, 96. They are the Trappist martyrs of Algeria. They were now beatified 2 years back on December 8th. these martyrs were beatified by Pope Francis. They were the Trappist monks who had a community, a monastery in Algeria. Algeria, northern part of Africa, is a French colony, and these Trappist monks were also French people, and they were living there. They were doing actually very lovely, beautiful works of charity, taking care of the local people, like clinics they were running, looking after the sick people, and helping them, instructing them, educating them. They were doing wonderful job actually. And in fact, they entered into culture, language of the people. And all the local people were Muslims, remember this. And those Muslim locals really loved and appreciated these monks. They were elderly monks, young monks, all those people were there. At one moment, there was civil war in Algeria. And when the civil war broke out, they were warned to come back, go back to their own country of France. In fact, even terrorists and militants and governments came to their monastery and warned them, go back or you will be killed here. So the superior abbot of the community, his name is Father Christian, he did not want to take a decision for all. And if they leave, the entire local beneficiaries will be helpless. They will be starving, they will be sick, and they will not have any support and help. So they were in a dilemma. So he called the entire community for a meeting, and he dialogued with them. And he dialogued with them and asked each one their opinion, because he did not want to take a decision. He respected their decisions. And he openly listened to each one. That was real community dialogue. He was not a dictator, the superior. He really respected each one's opinions. Finally, all of them decided to stay, because they found local people will be suffering if they leave. And they were attacked, and they were taken and shot dead. There were even 2 visitors in their community at that time. Their superior also had come. They were all shot dead. In fact, there is a movie that was made of Gods and Men, very beautiful movie based on this life of these martyrs. And they were martyred just few years back in the last century, in 90s, 95, of Gods and Men. I'll take a clipping, an excerpt from this movie where the superior Christian discusses with the other community members before they took the final decision to stay. Let us watch that.
Moi, je propose que chacun de nous se prononce sur un départ possible. Jean-Pierre?
Faut rester. Depuis quand on obéit aux armes?
Paul?
Je pense qu'il faut partir. Progressivement.
Célestin?
Je suis malade, je veux partir.
Luc?
Partir, c'est mourir. Je reste.
Voici la nuit, l'immense nuit des origines, et rien n'existe hormis l'amour qui se dessine, en séparant le sable et l'eau, Dieu préparait comme un berceau la terre où il viendrait au jour.
Salute to these Algerian martyrs mentioned in this teaching, Gaudete, the Exsultate by Pope Francis. They were killed in March 1996. Those photos are real photos, the real photos, not the movie actors' photos. The superior, Father Christian, and Brother Luke, and Father Christopher, some of those members. In fact, they were just martyred a few years back. they decided to stay, and they were really living in a dangerous time. Their prayer life and everything really was very touching. Did you listen to their liturgy of the hours? Every word from the psalm was relevant to them and meaningful to them. Sometimes we pray the psalms which do not touch us. Now the psalms becomes very meaningful in their life. Their life with the people become very, very relevant in their lives. Their life together becomes very relevant. In fact, they were all martyred. Community holiness. In fact, one of the Indian missionaries who was at that time in Algeria, her name is Sister Teresita, an FMM nun. She was there at this time. Their convent was not attacked. She was there when these fathers and brothers were martyred. And after all this war was over, she came back. And I had the privilege to meet this sister in Mysore. She's staying somewhere in Mysore in their convent. And she narrated to me that everything that was shown in the movie is true to the fact. True to the fact. And they were all martyred. And that brother Luke has a beautiful dialogue in this movie. An old man, Brother Luke looks after the sick people, etc. In the locality. There is a beautiful dialogue where one girl, young teenager, asks Brother Luke, elderly man. The girl is in problem with the love affair, and the girl asks Brother Luke, have you ever fallen in love, brother? And you know what Brother Luke's reply? Yes, I have fallen several times in love, but the last one was most lasting one. And they were really lasting, committed people in their religious life. So salute to them, an example for the community holiness. If you have a chance to watch the movie, please do watch. To conclude, these are some of the essential things we need to carry in our hearts from this teaching. Saints live with us. They are part of us. They are next door. So don't look for saints far away from our land, overseas. Don't look for them after their death. They are here alive. Probably our own parents and grandparents, elderly people are all saintly people. Focus on feminine holiness, which Pope Francis calls genius of women. And he says we need to have a more emphasis and stress on holiness of women in the church. They are actually beautiful examples of holiness, which he calls, genius of women in the church. Unfortunately, in the history, even now in many parts of the world, women are not treated as equal to men, even sometimes in the church. So we need to bring back and bring into our attention, our church, the feminine holiness and geniusness of women. Another thing, be holy wherever you are, whatever you do. You don't need to do great things and messiahs of the world to be holy. That is what it says. Each saint has a mission. I, as Father Gilbert, has a mission. That is my own specific, unique mission. Similarly, each of us has a mission to fulfill in this world. Nobody can be replaced with that mission. Nobody will replace after our life. We are all sent into the world with a particular mission. And that is the holiness path for all of us. And finally, there is no high caste holiness. We are all middle class holy people. And that's enough. Middle class of holiness. It is not, centered around few people in the church who spend a lot of time praying and meditating and fasting and doing penance. No. Anyone doing little job, ordinary jobs well, can be holy. To conclude, for our introspection, for our personal examination, I have few questions from the teaching of this Pope Francis from this document. The first question, Francis speaks about dangers of gossip 87. All these bracket numbers are the paragraph numbers in the teaching. And false information in social media. Do I refrain from gossip? How do I practice 8th commandment? Gossip is a big evil in our midst, whether in the families or in the communities. Pope Francis calls them as bombs that explodes in our lives. They are very dangerous bombs. Second question for introspection. In paragraph 98, Pope Francis gives the example of encountering a homeless person on a cold night. How sensitive and open am I to the needs of my people in my community? How sensitive am I to the needs of people in my community, in my family? Am I sensitive to the struggles of the person who lives in the same house, under the same roof? Do I recognize and notice the struggles and suffering other person goes through? Number 3, Saint Benedict, demanded his monks that all guests who knocked at the monastery door, he welcomed like Christ, with a gesture of veneration, with the greatest care and solicitude. So, any stranger welcomed with the greatest care and solicitude, invitation. How do I treat my domestic workers or any strangers? Bible says, love the stranger, because once upon a time we were all strangers to each other. So we have a responsibility to welcome the stranger, be more gentle and kind towards strangers. Francis cautions those people who act as a new Pelagians by way of their behavior, and he calls it as a museum pieces, making church into museum piece, or a club for chosen few, and making it possessive with the law or life. Am I possessive with the law or life? Am I inclusive? What is this? He speaks of a kind of an attitude in the church, making church into a museum piece, or making church into a type of area for only few people. That is this Pelagian attitude. When we become almighties, Maharanis and Maharajas, we cater to only to few people. We are quite satisfied, with those few, not open to others. So, am I exclusive or inclusive? Am I exclusive or inclusive? Do I act like a Pelagians in today's language, Maharajas and Maharanis, and restricting the entry to the few? That means our institutions, churches, schools, museum pieces, or not open to the others. So these are the few questions for reflection. I'll spend 2 minutes with these questions for you. A song will be played, a song based on Beatitudes, and that will be played in the background. After 2 minutes, the screen will go off.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall possess the land. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice. Blessed are they that suffer gladly for justice' sake. Blessed are they they shall be comforted. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are you when they revile and harm you and speak all evil against you untruly for my sake. Blessed are the merciful, for mercy they will find. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called God's children.